on-site inspections by the International Atomic Energy Agency, it was difficult to know exactly what Iran was really doing. Then, Western intelligence services caught a major break when a satellite captured what looked like a nuclear site in a suburb of Tehran called Lavizan.
Lavizan was a military site, and that Iran always said it's a civil program, there's no military involvement, but there you have a link with the military.
This could be the smoking gun the international community was waiting for. The International Atomic Energy Agency pressured Iran to get access to inspect the site, but the Iranians stalled. And a year later, as this satellite photo revealed, the site was gone.
They may have decided that whatever happened at this Lavizan site, they were going to make sure the IA couldn't do any environmental sampling, so they decided to raise the buildings. The Iranian nuclear weaponization program is extremely secret, and if it's exposed, it's a smoking gun that would unite the international community to put on very draconian sanctions on Iran. So it's a very secret effort, and Iran goes to great lengths to hide it, or if things are discovered, to try to discredit that information.
But the U.S. was working on top secret plans of its own to derail Iran's nuclear weapons program. Inside the CIA, U.S. intelligence agencies were beginning to zero in on Dr. A.Q. Khan's network and its sale of nuclear secrets to Iran.
The CIA was able to penetrate this network and learn that there really was a lot going on.
In 2000, the CIA came up with an ingenious plan to derail Iran's nuclear weapons research. It's called a Special Access Program, so sensitive that clearance for this type of covert operation must come from the very highest level of government. Both Presidents Clinton and George W. Bush approved it.
It was one of the most secretive operations during that time period.
The plan, according to highly placed intelligence sources, was to pass flawed nuclear designs to Iran.
And if they tried to build a nuclear weapon from them, that it would be a dud, and that it would set back their weapons program several years.
To carry out the operation, the CIA handpicked a former Russian scientist who had worked at Artemis 16, the Soviet Los Alamos, before defecting to the United States.
He had been working for the CIA as an asset, but he had never been asked to do anything like this. This was a lot more than he'd ever bargained for.
They took him to California's wine country and then to a San Francisco hotel, where they briefed him and handed over the designs. The designs were actual blueprints for a firing set, a critical component of a nuclear weapon.
They brought in some nuclear experts from one of the national laboratories and to embed the flaws into the designs, and they were supposed to do it in a way that was nobody could tell. But this Russian was able to see these flaws pretty quickly, and he was worried that the Iranians would quickly see that.
But when the Russian voiced his concerns to the CIA, they ignored him.
The senior CIA management didn't seem to care that he saw the flaws, and that was one of the problems with the operation from the beginning.
And it was a problem that would have dire consequences. They sent him off alone to Vienna, where Iranian officials would be visiting their mission to the International Atomic Energy Agency.
His assignment was to find the Iranians in Vienna and then give them these blueprints and then see what would happen after that. And he was supposed to, be posing as an unemployed Russian nuclear scientist who had stolen these blueprints from Russia.
At first, he wandered around Vienna.
He was very nervous, and he didn't really want to find the right place for a day or two, possibly because he was not sure he really wanted to go through with this. But in the end, he kind of watched a mailman deliver the mail, and then he realized he could just drop it in without having to actually talk to anybody.
But in carrying out the mission, the Russian scientist double-crossed the CIA. Nervous that the Iranians would come after him for passing bad information, he enclosed a letter indicating that there were problems in the blueprints. This is what he actually wrote.
After that, The Americans had some intelligence which suggested that the Iranians immediately went back to Tehran with these blueprints. And after that, there's really no evidence of what happened with the blueprints. But it's quite possible that it, in fact, aided the Iranians in their research because there was so much information in here that was valid as opposed to flawed.
Nobody knows the Russians' fate. But the CIA wasn't the only agency infiltrating Iran. The Israeli Secret Intelligence Service, the Mossad, also desperately needed to know how close Iran was to building a nuclear weapon.
I think they had pretty good intelligence about the intended locations where Iran was going to be enriching uranium.
So Michael Ross, one of the Mossad's most experienced operatives, was sent to Tehran on an undercover mission to literally get the dirt on Iran's nuclear weapons program.
My mission was to travel south of Iran to a specified location, which of course was predetermined before we departed.
That location was Natanz. His cover was that of a businessman.
I may have been in Iran as a businessman, having commercial contacts, but not unlike a lot of businessmen who travel, take a day off, take half a day off and do some sightseeing. It's not every day that you get to that part of the world. And all you have to do is somehow find a tourist map. If it has cover points on it, says there's an oasis here that so-and-so the explorer went through.
Arriving at his destination, Ross got out of the car.
Take a good look around, always looking around. And once you've determined it's all clear, then you get out and armed with your toilet paper, go off into the desert. And anybody who passes by would draw the assumption that you were going to use the desert as your own personal toilet and probably avoid that area as much as possible. The actual collection and photography and everything is very fast. It doesn't take very long. The photography is not necessarily visible to the naked eye.
And the loafers on his feet helped him carry out the next part of his mission.
And then, of course, it's very easy to just slip soil samples into your shoes and then, yeah, take them back and put them in a plastic bag in your suitcase.
The soil samples were later analyzed, and the results were used to set up future intelligence operations. And those operations helped uncover something Iran was desperately trying to hide: its nuclear power plant at Natanz. How this information got out is controversial, but according to some sources, it was the Mossad.
The Israelis decided that they would want to claim that they had that kind of intelligence operations within Iran, but that they passed it on to an opposition group to claim that they had collected the information.
That group was the MEK, an Iranian resistance group that had been based in Iraq since the late 1980s.
These were the sources who had been proven accurate in the past. Sources associated with Iran's main opposition network inside Iran, who were uniquely placed in very, very key and sensitive positions within the Iranian regime.
The MEK pumped its contacts in the construction industry in Iran and came up with some revealing evidence.
It was known there was a shortage of concrete. It'd be very hard to get concrete because so much of it was being absorbed by Natanz.
With its top secret information, the MEK helped Ali Reza Jafarzadeh, the group's U.S. spokesman, blow